Hey, welcome back everybody. My name's Kurt. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been around for a while, welcome back. This is part 2 of kind of getting to know choke tubes a little bit better. And there's actually a lot more to choke tubes than most people think. Quite a bit more. So in part 1, which I will link below if you haven't seen that, you can go click on that link that I put down below in the description box and go watch that. But I said that the cylinder bore was 0.730. And in most cases that's true, but not always. There are some manufacturers out there that are a little bit tighter, 0.725. And I've also seen some shotguns that are larger. Those often wind up with some stuck choke tubes and things like that because we're stripping wads, insides getting wedged in between the choke tube and the barrel. And we'll get into that more specifically in an upcoming video, but today we're going to talk a little bit about just the differences of tubes. So, I've got a factory, this is a Benelli flush mount, and this one here happens to fit my Beretta A400, and that's a 2-inch extended, which means it goes 2 inches beyond the barrel. This is flush with the muzzle of the barrel itself. So behind me I've got some exaggerated drawings on a whiteboard, but I think it'll help you understand a little bit more on how choke tubes work in the applications that you're using them for. So let's zoom in on this and talk about it. Okay, so these are, let's just assume that these are both full chokes. This one here would be the extended version, like this Rhino here, which sticks out about 2 inches beyond the muzzle where it's seated. This one here is completely flush with the muzzle. That would be this one over here. Now, when a wad is passing through this choke, and it doesn't have to be full, it could be improved cylinder, it doesn't really matter. The principle's all the same. When this wad full of shot is traveling through here, on a short flush mount tube, if you're going from on the skirt side, the side that goes into the barrel, cylinder bore to a full choke, you're doing that over a very short distance, meaning this distance here in the choke, versus something much longer like this here, cylinder bore to full choke, much longer. Why does that matter? You're trying to take a column of shot and squish it down right away if you're coming through this one here. Now, you're doing the same thing over here, but it's not quite as violent. It gets a little bit more time to sort of come into that and tighten down versus coming into this and you're just right there, right now. This can make a huge difference on a pattern. So if you're shooting it doesn't matter, 20 yards, 30, 40 yards. The difference between these two can actually make a difference. It doesn't mean this one is bad. It doesn't mean this one's bad or good. It can simply mean there's a difference. A lot of that difference can, comes with the type of shot that you're shooting, right? So this is a Boss number 4 here that I shoot hunting. This is one of my go-to rounds. This pattern's excellent out of a choke like this. This happens to be an extended range Optima HP for my Beretta. Pattern's excellent out of this at longer ranges and of course short ranges too. I don't get as good of a pattern out of the factory. So something to keep in mind. And it's not just about the difference in the shot itself. The wads can make a huge difference. So this happens to be just a clay buster wad here for sporting clays that I reload with, and it's a great wad. Nothing wrong with it. But I also like to shoot these mech wads. In fact, they're my go-to because you can see there's a clear difference in the wads. Now they perform just about the same. This has 4 pedals, but this has 8. A lot of difference there. These I find shoot slightly cleaner than these, but they pattern pretty much equal. But there's a huge difference in wads. So especially when it comes to hunting wads, performance, you name it, wads, they really do make a world of difference. Now, I could shoot this wad here out of my gun, get great patterns, which I do, but that doesn't mean that somebody else with a different gun is going to get the same pattern. By changing chokes, whether you're shooting a flush mount or an extended, you can change the way that they pattern based on the gun that you're shooting them out of and the ammunition that you're using. Now this here is also an extended tube. This is what Rhino is calling the SK2. It's fairly open. It's not a very tight choke, but it's also shorter. I get phenomenal patterns with this choke here with all of my ammo that I use for sporting clays. This particular choke out of my particular gun performs extremely well. I use this one all the time. In my Beretta, I've got this exact same choke. This is a Gen 2 extended choke from Rhino, but I'm shooting this with Boss ammo out of my Beretta A400. It's an Extreme Plus. I'm shooting a light mod, and I get great patterns, and we are knocking ducks down left and right with the light mod Boss ammo at 30, 35, 40 yards. It's a great performer. That might not be the same out of every gun. So on either one of these here, you can see a gradual taper on either side to the full choke. That is not true with all chokes. It's not necessarily a gradual taper. Some chokes can taper a little bit different. So this area here may be the final constriction, but the taper from the skirt up to that point can be all over the board. It's really hard to tell. You'd actually have to just measure the internal bore, you know, from top to bottom here and figure out what that looks like. Most chokes have a gradual taper, but not all chokes. So that's something to keep in mind too. It can make a difference. It doesn't necessarily make a difference, but it can. So, and some chokes have a step in them, right? So they may come this way here and then do this. I know that's a little extreme there. It's not quite that extreme, but you get the idea. Where you can have steps. You can have all kinds of stuff in here. So just something to keep in mind. They're not all created equal. Well, I hope you're not confused yet. And as we continue to go through this series here, things will start to probably come together and make a lot more sense by the time we're done. And we'll finish this whole series up by going out, taking some shots again, doing you know, this choke versus that choke versus this choke and that ammo, and you'll start to kind of understand some of that stuff. So I do hope that this helped a little bit. It can be a little bit overwhelming and confusing, and you know, you may buy choke A or choke B and shoot ammo A out of both of those and not get what you're looking for, and then shoot ammo B and go, wow, those are great patterns. It's really... anybody who's ever done anything with rifles can relate to this. Do some load development on, you know, 150 grain versus 162 grain versus 160 grain, and one will outperform the other two phenomenally, and you can't understand why. You know, how come these other two don't shoot? I mean, the weight is almost nothing in difference, but it makes a big difference. So same is true with chokes and the different ammo you push through them. So anyways, again, stick around. We're just getting started here, so there's actually a lot more to chokes than what we've covered so far. So anyways, I hope this helps, and we'll see you for part 3 real soon.